If you're brand new to a leadership role, or you aspire to become a leader, or you're a business owner that's like, man, I got all these people on my team now, I should probably figure out how to be a leader, then this video is for you, because I'm going to help you to master the number one most important skill of every great leader, which is communication. And if you want to master your ability to communicate as effectively as possible, then you must know and develop and eventually master these 5 sub-skills for great communication. Skill number 1, that's the foundation for all of it, is ask great questions. You've got to be able to ask great questions of everyone around you. And by the way, this is not just great for your professional leadership role, but your ability to lead your family, to be a great spouse, partner, significant other, parent, someone in the community. If you want to be a great communicator, you've got to start by figuring out how to ask great questions. And I'm going to give you 4 very specific reasons this is vitally important so that you are convinced that it's a skill to develop. Number 1, it shows people that you truly care what they think. Because if you're asking someone a question and you're genuinely asking them the question with sincere curiosity in your question, then they'll realize you really want to know what they think. And when you can show people that you genuinely care and want to know what they think, you will totally transform your relationship with that person, and you will inspire that person to actually share with you what they're thinking. There you go. Number 2, it shows you trust their decision making. When you ask someone a question in the context of being a business owner or a leader professionally, you're actually demonstrating, I want to know what you're thinking here or what you would do here, because I ultimately want you to come to a decision. Let me give you a quick little story of how I actually figured out this. Skill number 1 is the most important skill to develop as a leader. I was having a conversation with a gentleman who has passed away a handful of years ago, but he was the former CEO and president of a large organization. You may have heard of it, called AT&T Corporation. His name's Bob Allen. He was CEO from like the early 80s to the early 90s, and he happened to be my fraternity brother from my same college that I went to, and I had the chance to connect with him on a phone call for probably 60 to 90 minutes. I don't recall. It was several years ago, but my mind was blown when I asked him the question, Bob, how'd you do it? How'd you climb the corporate ladder? How'd you get to literally the pinnacle of leadership within such a massive organization? And basically what he told me, he's like, JJ, I rarely ever made decisions. And he went on to explain what he meant by I rarely ever made decisions. He basically was saying, JJ, when people came to me, when the people I had hired or were part of my team that came to me with questions about what they should do, I asked them questions. Because I knew if I asked them questions, it would help them realize that they were in the role for a reason, that they were here to make decisions, that they could be empowered to make decisions, which brings me to point number 3, which is empowers them. When you ask people questions with the intent to empower them to make decisions, they actually, ipso facto, feel empowered to make the decisions. You see, if we're not going to ask people questions with a sincere curiosity and intent to get them to make the decision, then it doesn't empower them. They feel like, well, maybe you're just trying to lead me down a track, so I pick what we should be doing. But if you're actually asking questions with the sincere intent to get someone else to come up with the answer, you've now empowered that person to make a decision. And whatever that decision is, that person has the opportunity to make the decision right. Sometimes people will say, well, how will I know I've made the right decision? I love to go with Andy Andrews' perspective on this, which is you make a decision and you make it right. Because you're not always, in fact, very often you might not make the right decision given all of the information that you have, but you always have the chance to make the decision. Whatever choice you make, you have the chance to make it right through your actions and follow through with whatever decision you make. Point number 4 for why it's vital to be mastering your ability to ask questions. It prevents you as the leader from owning every problem. You see, when you can do everything I've just shared with you, and you can help empower the other people around you to make decisions, to think for themselves, to take action, you've now actually given them the chance to take things off of your plate. Because now they and you know they can do it. They can make the decision. They can make the choice. They can move forward with action. So ultimately, back to my story with Mr. Bob Allen and him running a CEO or being the CEO of AT&T Corporation, he's like, JJ, I barely made decisions because I asked the people that I had hired or had been put in leadership roles or earned their opportunity to be in leadership roles. What do they think we should do here? They were empowered to make choices, and now they took action instead of him having to make every decision and owning the responsibility of doing everything. That's what a great leader does. A great leader creates great leaders by empowering them through asking them questions that help get them to the point of making the decision, taking action, and making the decision right. Let's move on to skill number 2. Skill number 2, listening. Let me get the tape off there. Listening. Listening is an incredibly important skill because if you've asked the question, you don't move to step number 2 or skill number 2, what's the point? But once you've asked questions, you've got to listen. And I'm going to give you some very specific ways and things you should be doing while you listen. In fact, I've got 5 that will help you to be the best listener possible in your leadership role. So, number 1, trust your gut. Trust your gut when you're listening. You see, one thing that I learned through the coach training that I did is that we've really got to go with our intuition. Like when we're listening to someone, when I'm trained as a coach to listen to another human, I'm really trained to tap into my gut, my intuition about what I'm feeling, about what I'm hearing. Because if I don't trust my gut, my intuition, then I'm not leaning on something that's wired into us as humans that we've been given to use as a powerful tool in human interaction. You know, how many times are you like, man, like my gut feels this way, or like my intuition's telling me. And you have that sense when you're talking with someone, when you're asking a question, when you're listening to what someone's saying, you're like, there's more to this, or this is not connecting. Something just gets in you, and you're like, I feel something going on, whether it's in your heart or your gut or somewhere else in you. You're like, I feel a certain way about what I'm hearing from this person. Even if it's not the words I'm hearing from this person, it's something that's below the surface of the words. I've got this intuition. You've got to learn to trust your gut, to listen to your intuition when you're listening to someone, because if you're not listening to your intuition when you're listening to another human, then you are removing a significant portion of your ability to listen as impactfully as possible. The second thing that you need to do to be a great listener, feel and notice energetic shifts. And this might be a different or weird or interesting one for you if you've never thought about this, but think about like when you interact with another person and you're like, man, that person's energy seemed off. Or they had really positive energy or negative energy or weird energy is what I was feeling from that person. You've got to notice those shifts within a conversation. So you might talk with a friend or someone you know really well or a significant other or a child, and in the moment that you're having the conversation with that person, you're like, something's different about their energy right now. But that's like macro in the moment. But there's also micro moments in any interaction when you're having a conversation with someone that you can notice micro shifts in energy. So if you're talking about the game over the weekend, the big ball game or whatever, you're talking about the weather, I don't care, whatever you're talking about, what we did over the weekend, and you're like, yeah, how was it? It was awesome. And now the conversation shifts into a different topic. And not only does the topic shift, but you notice an energetic shift of that person that you're leading and you're having the conversation with. You've got to be able to tune yourself in to those energetic shifts of other people. So the first point I shared was listen to your gut, your intuition about how someone's receiving something or about where someone's at or how it's landing, whatever you're saying or whatever the situation demands. But also there's a distinction where you've got to notice the energy shifts within the context of a conversation. So if you can pick up on those energetic shifts, you're more intuitive about where you need to take the conversation or what you need to be asking next. The third thing to be a great listener is to listen for their MOTW. What's their MOTW? I've listed it right here. Their map of the world. Someone's map of the world is how they see the world. Their beliefs, their values, their perspectives, their opinions, literally everything in their mind about how they see reality. We all have a different map of the world, but we can't really know someone's map of the world because we can't get in their head just without asking questions. But once you ask questions and you start to listen, you can pick up on someone's map of the world. You can hear the person's language patterns because our language, the words we use, how we speak, whatever messages we share, will demonstrate the way we view the world. Our beliefs, our values, our core opinions, our perspectives. Our language helps us to know, what does someone think about a given situation? Is someone limited or someone abundant and able to be empowered and take action? Someone's language tells you a lot about that person. In fact, your own language can tell you a lot about yourself. You've got to be listening for what are someone's beliefs? What are someone's values? What's someone's perspectives and opinions on the world? How do they see the world working around them? Because once you can understand or start to better understand someone's map of the world, their perspective, their beliefs, their values, you're now in a better position to lead that person because we're all influenced based on our own values, beliefs, perspectives, our own map of the world. We are all moved by our map of the world. If I don't understand your map of the world at all, I have a significantly lower probability of being able to lead and influence you as effectively and powerfully as possible. Vice versa. Same, if roles are reversed and you're trying to lead or influence me, if you don't fully understand, or as much as possible understand how I see the world, my beliefs, my values, what's important to me, what's meaningful for me, what I'm trying to accomplish, then you're not going to be in the best position to move me or influence me or lead me as someone that's in your life, personally or professionally. So if you want to be a great leader in the role that you're in, or you want to step into the opportunity and earn the opportunity to be a great leader, you must master the ability to listen to the point that you can understand or start to unveil someone else's map of the world. Because once you know someone's map of the world, you absolutely are in a powerful position to influence that person. And by the way, you can use that understanding to be a force for good, to help that person to take appropriate and effective actions in the right direction, to make the right changes of mindset or beliefs or opinions or actions, so you can accomplish the mutually agreed upon end result that you want. Or you can use it to be the opposite, not a force for good, but a force for bad. And certainly I'm not advocating for that, but my point is it is power nonetheless, and it's something you must learn to understand, and then hopefully you will use to be a force for good, to be a powerful, positive influence in the world for that person and the other people you get to reach. Number 4, be patient. In fact, if you have to bite your tongue, and this is metaphorical, please don't bite your tongue and then be like, JJ told me to bite my tongue and it really hurt. No, what I'm telling you is, metaphorically speaking, stop speaking so much. Or at the very least, be patient and wait for someone to finish a full response. What I have found, there's something called a coach pause, which is like 7 seconds of complete silence. And it is one of the most powerful communication tips in the world. If you can pause and give enough space for silence, that you give the other person that you're interacting with time and space to say something else, that is sometimes the most valuable information you could ever get access to. If you want to be an incredible, outstanding, and effective leader, you are a person that must gather as much info as possible from the other person as possible. And so back to map of the world. If you want to understand someone's map of the world, you've got to give space for them to share their map of the world. And so what way too many people do is they interrupt, or at the very least, they cut someone off as soon as they think they're done. So if I say a sentence and I pause for a second to like take a breath or to swallow because my throat is dry, and you hop in and you start to say the next thing or ask the next question, you might have just cut off the opportunity for me to say something that's going to be a nugget of gold that you want and need as a leader, as a person of powerful, positive influence. So what I encourage so many people to do is to get comfortable with silence. Because if you can get comfortable and even confident and effective with giving space for someone to continue to share what's on their mind and on their heart, even before you're like, man, it's been like 5 seconds. It feels like eternity if you're not used to it. And even if you are used to it, it feels like forever. But if you can get used to the silence, then you're going to open up a gold mine of opportunity for people to just dump gold in front of you, for you to use for the benefit, for the good of your interaction, and to move the mission forward in your role as a leader. So be patient. Be patient, be patient, get comfortable with silence, with the pause, and you will give people, I promise you, even just test it for today, I promise you, you will give people an opportunity that most people never get, and that's to share the thing that comes out after you've shared everything. Like, that's the key here. Before I move on to point number 5 for listening, that's the nugget that you need to take, which is sometimes the gold comes after you think you got the gold. Sometimes the gold in a conversation comes after you feel like the person shared everything that person has to share. But if you give the person the gift of silence and space to think, to ruminate, because by the way, sometimes people just need the time and the space to think. How often are we not given the space and time to think? And we're like rushing through a conversation or an interaction, or someone's demanding something from us in a moment, so we don't have time to think. But if you give someone the space, even just a handful of extra seconds, that's when the gold gets poured out of their mouth, which comes from their brain and maybe more importantly from their heart and their soul, that they give you on a silver platter. That's right, gold on a silver platter for you to use for the benefit of the good of the mission, to move you and them forward closer to where you're trying to go. Point number 5 for being great at listening: show that you're listening. Show that you're listening. How do you show that you're listening? You show that you're listening through your body language, through your through nonverbals, and even through verbals. Like, how much better do you feel if someone's listening to you and nodding along? Or maybe even they like lean in a little bit. They look like they're working hard to listen to you. Like, when we feel like someone's making an effort for us, especially when it comes to listening, we feel so much better about that person. It's like, man, this person's really working hard to listen to me. Like literally the point where they're like, yeah, tell me, oh, wow, huh. Like there are so many things, and you know the answer to this. Watch people that you view as great listeners and just do what they do. As Tony Robbins said, success leaves clues. The clue for you is that people that listen well lean in physically, emotionally. They want to be right there with you, and they show you with their face. They show you by being like, oh, wow, by empathizing, by using language that shows you're listening, by maybe even saying what you're hearing, even just a couple of words like, oh, that must have been tough, or it sounds like that was a really difficult situation, or it sounds like that was really amazing. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's so cool that you accomplished so much. Like whatever it is, and the good or the bad or the indifferent, we got to be able to lean in to our listening. Okay, skill number 3, which I was just touching on, but I'm going to take a little bit deeper dive, nonverbal. People that are excellent at communication skills and therefore the best leaders, they understand how to use nonverbal communication. So there was an incredible study done back in the 1960s at UCLA by an individual and his team. The individual is Dr. Morabian, and he was at UCLA, I think it was like 1967, and he wanted to study the different components of, and the weightings of those components of how someone most effectively communicates feelings and emotion from one person to the next. And so the study that I'm about to share with you is the weighting of words, tonality of voice, and facial expressions, and our ability to communicate feelings or emotions from ourselves to another person or between two people. And so before I share this study, I want you to understand that there are a lot of naysayers about this study, like, well, it's not about communication, it's just about communicating feelings and emotions, like it's really specific. And they're right, it is really specific. But then we've got to ask ourselves the question, how much of communication is emotional and how much of it is logical? I'd submit to you that the biggest job of a leader is to emotionally engage people, to change behavior, to change the way they think, or to just keep taking action in the right direction. Even if they're doing the right stuff, it's like, how do we keep doing the right stuff and then continually improve and better our ability to take that action in the right direction, do it faster, better, more effectively, more efficiently, all the things. That comes down to an emotional connection. Let's think about it really simplistically. You've heard it over and over and over again to the point that it's become cliche that people don't buy logically. People buy emotionally with their emotions, with their feelings, what they feel is the right choice, and they convince themselves with the logic, with the data, with the information, with the numbers. But most people, most of the time, are making decisions on behavior, on choices, on what they believe based on emotion. So what I'd submit to you is that the vast majority of your human interactions are way more emotional and about your feelings and the other person's or the other people's feelings than about the logic or the information. Even if you're using logic, information, data, I can promise you that first and foremost, you move people as a leader, as a communicator with emotion. And that's why this study I'm about to share with you is vitally important to understand. Hopefully you can see this. So if you were to guess, what percentage of the weighting, and this will add up to 100% between words, tonality, and facial expressions as the 3 different components of being able to effectively communicate feelings or emotions from one person to the next. What weighting do you think words have? Go ahead and guess as I pull this off. Oh, you can barely see it. 7%. Hopefully I'm not revealing the next one. 7%. 7% of your ability to communicate feelings from one person to the next is about the words that you use. The next is tonality of voice, pace, pitch, tonality, quality, intensity, volume, all of these different components of vocal qualities and intensities. What do you think that percentage is? Words are 7%. Vocal tonality is, drum roll please, as I try to get this off. Woo, here we go. Come on now. Stick with me. It kind of pulled off, but here it is, 38%. 38%, literally over 5 times more impact comes from the tonality of your voice than the words that you use. That's why the cliche saying goes, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. That comes back to tonality. And the third component, which is facial expressions, you could also lump in physiology or how you use your body. With all of this, it's very similar, but this study specifically talks about facial expressions makes up the remaining. If you're a mathematician or even if you're good at quick math, then you already know, if I get the tape off of there, facial expressions make up 55% of the weighting of your ability to communicate feelings from one person to the next. So when you think about it this way, tonality and facial expressions. What's 100% minus 7%? 93%. So tonality and facial expressions make up 93% of your ability to communicate feelings and emotions from one person to the next, which means together they combine to be about, I think the math's like 13 times more impactful than words by themselves. So what this tells me is we absolutely have to find a way to leverage tonality of voice and facial expressions to communicate messages with other people. And by the way, this is not just in how we speak, this is how we listen. Because how much of your listening comes down to how you're using your face. I've heard it said that the most underutilized real estate in the world is the face, is the human face. Because most people are just communicating like this. They're not using their tone of voice. They're not using their face. They're just like, it doesn't move at all. And you're like, is this person happy or not? I have no clue. If we got more people to use more of their face, I believe we could have more people who actually understand other people. And if you want to be someone that absolutely finds a way to communicate with power and passion and influence with other people, then you've got to find a way to use your face, but you've also got to do it while you're listening. And you can use your entire physiology, your body, your arm movements, your stance, your body positioning, where you lean in, how you lean, how much you lean in, all of these things in order to listen as effectively as possible and use your nonverbal as much as possible. And I'll get to point number 4 in a second, but what I want to leave you with is this. If you truly want to be a great communicator, don't just think, what are the words I need to say? Words are important. Words can get someone to fall in love with you or want to punch you in the face. But at the end of the day, they are significantly less important than your tonality and your physiology, which are all nonverbal components of your ability to communicate. Skill number 4, speaking. You've got to be able to speak to one other individual, a few other individuals, like a small team, or a large group of people. Whether you're leading a team and you need to address the whole team, you're talking to one person on your team, or you're maybe making a presentation to the entire company, or you're the leader, or you're the salesperson, you're out there trying to talk to a bunch of people, you must master the ability to do public speaking. And public speaking to me is anytime you're talking with another human, because you are where? In public. So even if you're talking to one other person, you've got to master the ability to communicate with power and influence and effectiveness. And a lot of that comes back to the foundations, which we said from the beginning. Can you ask good questions and then listen to the point that you understand someone else's map of the world and use nonverbals so that when you get your chance to actually speak to the one person or the small team or the large group, you know exactly what you need to say and how you need to say it to move these people to think differently, behave differently, or just start to move closer to their greatest potential. So, fifth and final, not get there, 1 second. There are a few things, how many really quick? 1, 2, 3 things that you can do to be a more powerful and effective communicator. Number 1, energy. Energy is everything. Energy is everything. And so if you want to be a powerful and effective person that speaks and communicates, whether to one other person or to a team or to many other people, you've got to bring great energy. There's someone that he started a business from scratch just about a decade ago named Russell Brunson. He started a company called ClickFunnels. You may or may not have heard of him. His company does well over $200 million of annual revenue. And in the course of having the business, they've done over $1 billion in sales. And why do I tell you this? Because he's figured out how to be really successful. One thing that he's most skilled at is public communication for selling his products and services. And I tell you this because he has said when you're speaking, whether you're on a stage live in person, you're in front of a team, or especially if you're on a camera or video, you must use way more energy than you even think you need. You almost need to use so much energy that you're like, man, I feel like this phone's just going to get destroyed with how much energy I'm speaking at it. But the truth is, most people, when they think they're giving a lot of energy, they're giving a fraction. They're giving a fraction. The people that are the greatest influencers, the people that are the greatest leaders, they find a way to bring great energy, intense, passionate, powerful energy into every speech that they give. Why? Back to what I said earlier. People don't buy logic, they buy emotion. They convince themselves with logic. So if you want to move people, you've got to get people excited. And this comes back to the fact that our emotions are contagious. And if you want people to take action, they've got to be excited. They literally have to feel this certain feeling of excitement, enthusiasm, passion, boiling up, excitedness in them. And you do that by you being excited, by you bringing great energy. So that's why the first thing to be a great speaker is great energy. You've got to focus intentionally on bringing great energy into every speech that you make. Number 2, I touched on this, but let me remind you, you need to do this in speaking. You need to leverage what I call the 93%, your tonality and your facial expressions or physiology. The words are important, but not as important as the 93%. So when you're speaking, my point of bringing this up again is to say, you could think about the words and the scripts all day long. What you really need to think about is how you're going to leverage the nonverbals, the 93%. And then when you do that, you'll do number 3, which is connect. You've got to find a way to connect. You must connect with the people that you're speaking with. Again, if it's one person, or if it's a small team, or if it's a large audience, you've got to feel like you're making the intention to actually genuinely connect, not just spew out information from your face. Because if your only intent is to just spew words, and you don't have the intention to actually connect with the people that you're speaking with, then you won't connect. Like if you're meeting someone for the first time, and your goal is just, I'm going to say things at this person, or I'm just going to stand there blankly, but you don't have the intention to truly connect with that person, do you think it's a high likelihood or a low likelihood that you're going to connect to that person? Significantly lower than if you actually showed up with the intent to connect with another human. That's why I say even when you're doing public speaking, you're speaking with a small group, small team, or large audience, you must make it your intent to connect. And by the way, if you got a small team or a large group, if it's a small team of just a few people, you can certainly find a way to make eye contact and truly connect and have an energetic exchange with every individual. And if you've got enough time, certainly multiple times with every individual. But if it's a large audience, you know it's a really cool secret that most people don't realize? When you connect deeply with even one person in the audience, but other people witness you connecting deeply with that one person, they will feel it. Because again, humans are emotional and social beings. We feel the emotional connectivity of other people. That's why you can watch a movie and you're not even in the movie, but you see people having an emotional experience together, good or bad, and you feel it. Because when you witness that connection, or even a disconnection in an argument, but still an energetic connection, even if it's negative, you witness that, you feel it. And so as they say, what's personal is universal. Same thing when you're speaking. If you can personally connect with one other individual, more people in that audience are going to feel the connectivity, and they, in fact, then will feel like you're more of a human. You're authentic, and like they could also connect with you because they just witness you connect with another person in that same exact audience. Skill number 5. Actions. Why? Because actions speak louder than words. So if all you focus on is asking questions, listening, you're nonverbal, and you're speaking, but you're not taking actions to follow through on it, you're not going to be a great, authentic, powerful, influential leader. You must realize that the greatest communicators on the face of the planet understand this. When they communicate, they've got to follow it with actions because your actions speak louder than words. Speak louder than words. Your actions influence more powerfully than anything you could say. So friend, you've got to back up everything you say, every conversation, every idea, every insight, every motivational message with actual specific action because people follow people that take action. So you can't just communicate and be a great leader. You got to communicate really well and master these 5 skills, and then you absolutely must find a way to take action and show people that you're a great leader. And if you've loved this message, please subscribe for more just like this. Tell me in the comments below what you've loved from this message, and please share it out with someone that you care about if you believe that person is on his or her way to become a great leader as well and just needs a little bit of skill development in the space or area of developing communication skills. Till next time, friend, be your best.